natural gas. They have made a concerted effort. You know what? Right now, there are 1/16 of the rigs operating in Wyoming right now in the Jonah field than there was 3 years ago. The reason being, gas, dirt cheap. Natural gas, dirt cheap. And we've got tons of it. But we also have to use all the things that science gives us. Give you an example of what Arizona's doing. On those pipelines, you have a big reservoir coming through. To get down to residential, you got to get it into smaller volumes. They actually have some turbines that were tested here down in the Phoenix area, if I'm not mistaken, that actually generate their own electricity, and they're tied into electrical plants as they reduce the flow of gas. There's that science thing again. Got to invest in the science and got to get that science going. Yes, sir.
Why aren't we, what's the holdup with producing power generation with natural gas? What's the holdup?
Say what?
What's the holdup with producing power with natural gas?
I don't know what the federal government, the EPA. One of the things you're going to find out is that the regulatory body, the EPA, is also not your friend. They go unregulated. And that's things that you also better be aware of, is the regulation or the look at your water in the state. Here's one that's coming, because the EPA is going to challenge that, because their definition of a navigable waterway is your storm drain. That means they got you coming and going. And let me tell you something else. If you control water in the western United States, there's really 2 big ones that last time I looked at my geography. It's called the Colorado and the Columbia. If you control those, you control everybody. And I guess Beck used to look at this as just a big parking lot, right? It's time that Arizona defends itself in the 10th Amendment. Right. That's why you have to start looking at something as a state. Coming back to your question, water. If you are taken on by the EPA as just a sole one individual that owns some water rights, you lose. How about defining what your assets and liabilities are as far as water is concerned, both surface and subsurface, which Arizona actually does, one of the few states that do. Why don't you build a consortium, a loosely held network of actually knowing what you got as assets and reserves? You already do banking for California and Nevada. Define what you're going to do with your excesses in the good times and bad. Then start playing with Utah. Then start playing with Wyoming. What am I after? I'm after the Green River Lake of the Colorado. Then go to Colorado and then start working with the Native Americans. Form a policy, a cohesive network that actually assets individual states that identifies and supports the 10th Amendment. Start working with neighbors. I've got patients who actually live in the San Joaquin Valley. What if you were to play with them? Some of the most fertile ground in all the world. We have to start looking at our assets collectively. And we have to do it as a state first. First of all, we have to do it as a location, as a community, and then as a state, and then as a group of states within a region. I think that's the last thing was how our forefathers got something done. Here's your sign, reinvent it. No, just follow the old template. Yes, sir.
Well, I have a question. Assuming that there's so much suspicion out there about our politicians in D.C. As a congressman, when you get into office, what can be done to go after the politicians who are actually stealing from the American people, who are in conspiracies to divert money to their own pocketbook or to their buddies? I mean, why can't we investigate what's going on with all these connections? Who's really running our government? Who's really pulling the strings? So many things, obviously they're not listening to the people in any veins. They just keep going and spending money. But somebody's getting rich over this. How do we go back and investigate the people who are running the government, who are the crooks? How do we go and get them?
Well, we've shown over and over that Congress is ill set up to govern their own. They don't do a good job, and they haven't done a good job. You know, Congressman Rangel, she's a good example. Why don't we start with an independent body that you know, retired judges? God, retired judges love to be back.